Our clients right now are just kind of rolling with the punches.
More than half of the adults we reached are under more financial stress now than they were a year ago.
America's fight with inflation continues. Households have been waiting for lower prices for far too long. Prices of every essential good and service, including food, energy, and rent, have been rising for the last 2 years. In June 2022, it reached a 40-year high, 9.1%, putting immense pressure on families with constrained budgets. The Federal Reserve's policy to hike interest rates for the 9th time a year has some positive effects, but it's too soon to call it a victory. Even a glimmer of hope has shown in public opinion. A recent survey by Monmouth University found that about 25% of adults in the U.S. are currently most worried about inflation affecting their families. This is a decrease from last summer when 33% said inflation was their biggest concern. Only 1% of people surveyed said that rising gas prices were the top issue for their families, which is a significant decrease from 15% last summer. More people, 12%, are now worried about the overall state of the economy compared to 9% last summer. Additionally, 12% of respondents said their top concern was the cost of everyday bills and groceries, an increase from 6% last summer. In today's video, we'll discuss recent inflation trends in the U.S. and their impact on millions of families in the country. So, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell to stay informed on the most crucial economic topics. So, let's begin with a recent inflation report by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. According to the agency, inflation in March increased by only 0.1% compared to February. But yearly inflation hit 5%. Now, this is significantly lower than last year, especially in the summer, but the prices of many vital goods have not dropped. The report shows that inflation is still decreasing, but at a slower rate, which is not good news for the Federal Reserve. The core prices, which don't include the prices of food and energy, that vary a lot, went up by 0.4% or 5.6% every year. This is higher than the increase in February, which was 5.5%, and it's the first time it's increased faster in 5 months. Undoubtedly, the marked decline in headline inflation will be embraced as evidence that central bank efforts to cool the economy and rein in inflation is having an effect, said Jim Baird, CIO of Plant Moran Financial Advisors. That's the good news. The more troubling aspect of the report lies in the fact that core prices are proving to be comparatively sticky. The amount of money households paid for food they ate at home went down by 0.3%, which is the first time it's gone down since September 2020. Eggs became a lot cheaper, with their price dropping by 10.9%. Other things that got cheaper were meat, fruits, and vegetables. However, the prices of cereals and bakery products as well as non-alcoholic drinks went up. Eating at restaurants also became more expensive. But on a yearly basis, the prices of food are not lower in any sense. On the contrary, Lador Department's data reveals that 12 months of unadjusted prices on food at home increased by 8.5%, and prices on food away rose by 8.4%. So the concern of many economists that inflation is here to stay is reasonable, and celebrating a monthly decrease in consumer price index on food is an illusion. And families with low incomes suffer the most because they feel food prices rising, despite the narrative that inflation is tamed. For this matter, one may find the Washington Post article, "Why Americans Are So Pessimistic About Their Finances," engaging. Doug Briggs and his elderly mother live on fixed incomes. He gets disability benefits and she gets Social Security. Together they make about $25,000 a year, which is considered low income compared to other households in the country. Even though they received cost of living adjustments in their benefits, they still struggle to make ends meet and have had to make significant changes to their lifestyle. They used to enjoy going to Denny's for lunch, but since prices have increased, they can't afford it anymore. They now eat at cheaper places like a local Mexican restaurant or pizza place and have cut back on eating out twice a week. They rarely go out for dinner now. Moreover, we have the same situation with shelter and transportation costs, as both on a monthly basis increase slightly, but considering the same period last year, the increase is substantial. For instance, CPI of shelter for all urban consumers increased by 8.2% compared to March 2022. Similarly, prices of transportation services have gone up by almost 14%. A recent study commissioned by the Fund for the City of New York revealed the ugly truth about living in America's Visit Card City, NYC. In 2023, a family of four would need to make more than $100,000 to match costs anywhere in New York City. That is significantly higher than the roughly $70,000 median household income the city reported by the U.S. Census. This report looks at the actual cost of living in different areas considering local expenses and the size of homes. It gives a better understanding of poverty compared to the old measure used since the 60s. According to the old calculation, only 16% of households in New York City were considered poor. However, this report suggests that many more people need help to make ends meet than the official measure shows. The report's authors explain that the situation is worse than what the government statistics indicate. As for transportation, millions of Americans also struggle to cover transportation fees. Furthermore, the transportation industry is something that drives inflation. The rise in transportation costs is an important factor in the current period of inflation. High transportation costs reduce the amount of money consumers have available to spend elsewhere, resulting in lower demand for other goods and services. This further drives inflation and contributes to the rising cost of living that we're seeing globally. Michael Collins, a financial analyst at Endicott College in Beverly, Massachusetts, says, and although politicians are trying to introduce solutions through the reintroduction of the Freedom to Move Act, bold legislation to support state and local efforts to establish public transportation as a public good through fare-free services, solving the problem will probably take years. Thus, ordinary households will have to cope with the issue on their own. On top of that, the Labor Department's report reveals that electricity and utility bills are now more expensive than 12 months ago. Electricity costs 9.2% more, while prices of utilities piped gas services increased by over 10%. According to the National Energy Assistance Directors Association data, some 20.5 million households, 1 in every 6 in the nation, were behind on their electric bills at the end of January 2023, up from 19 million at the end of January 2022, and about 13 million were behind on their natural gas bills, up from 12.5 million the year before. Move.org's research demonstrates that South Carolina has among the highest utility bills in the country. The report states that South Carolinians spend an average of $418 a month on utilities. South Carolina residents pay an average of $138 a month on electricity alone. Like a few other states in our top 10, South Carolina has a hot climate that necessitates a lot of air conditioning, which contributes to these hefty bills. Last but not least, March data states that prices on apparel and medical care commodities have gone up by 3.3% and 3.6% respectively, compared to 2022. Considering the high cost of medical services in the U.S., this will not make families happier. By the way, if you're interested in the topic of ridiculously high medical expenses in America, watch this video about medical debt in the United States. Finally, about what to expect in the future. The U.S. economy could get worse before it gets better. EY forecasts that it will likely worsen before it starts improving. This is due to the combination of high prices, high interest rates, and tightening credit conditions, which will negatively impact business investment, consumer spending, and transaction markets in the coming months. While there is no evidence of significant economic imbalances, recessions are often unexpected events. EY expects a recession to happen in the middle of the year, with the Fed increasing the interest rate by 25 basis points in May and then lowering it later in the year. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and feel free to express your opinion on the topic in the comments section below.